Welcome to Ocean Stories, a podcast about the people doing incredible things in, on, and around our oceans. I'm your host, Lydia Carey, and I believe in the power of stories to save our seas. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ocean Stories. Kind of a crazy time. A lot has happened since this episode and last week. We have a new head of the EPA. We have a new president-elect. We have Biden doing crazy stuff at the last second. Biden and his administration, and everybody that currently works in his administration, trying to do a bunch of random things at the last minute to protect our environment so that when Trump gets into office, he can't immediately undo everything. We're going to get into all of that a little bit today. I want to talk only about factual stuff as much as possible. The dogs are barking because they want to hear this information. I was thinking it would be good to just have a breakdown of information of what people think is going to happen from the Trump administration based on what he has said are his plans when he is in the office. Because I think knowledge is power, right? And we're all listening to Ocean Stories because we care about the ocean, we care about the environment. We would be better off to know what's going on. So without further ado, let's get into some of the threats facing our oceans and environment under policies proposed by the Trump administration. We are talking about actions that could erase years of progress in protecting marine life and preserving public lands. It's kind of heavy, but it's also a time to step up, strategize, to get informed, and to take care of our communities. And I know for some people, this is kind of a heavy time and a heavy topic. So if you are feeling like this is a bunch of stuff that you are not really interested in hearing or dealing with right now, I have a lot of friends that actually worked super, super hard on the Kamala Harris campaign and on getting out the vote and all of these different things. If you are not up for listening to this right now, go ahead, log off, make a cup of tea, and come back and listen when you're feeling rested, energized, and just a little bit more hopeful about the state of our world. Okay, let's talk about some of the things quite broadly that Trump has talked about doing. One of them being reversing marine protected areas. Marine protected areas, we have talked about them before. They are like underwater national parks. They often have a bunch of restrictions in terms of what you can do on them. So sometimes you can't fish, sometimes you can't even boat. They have different rules and regulations for what you can do, but they're super, super important because they prevent offshore drilling. So rolling back protections to these areas means that critical ecosystems could be opened up to fishing, mass overfishing, drilling for oil, and development, which would undo decades of conservation work. The good news is that marine protected areas are a little bit tricky to reverse, which is why so many that are currently still working in the government are pushing for areas that are currently one status below marine protected area, so they're protected but not all the way there, cemented in stone. They are pushing for marine protected areas to be 100% legally down on the paper so that when he gets into office, he can't just sign a paper and undo them. So on that note, expanding offshore drilling. It is no secret that Trump views the United States' oil reserves and our energy potential as something that's not to be trifled with and a way for the United States to maintain its international superpower status, if you will. Expanding offshore drilling would open our coasts and the area off of the coast to oil spills, pollution, a ton of habitat destruction. Coastal communities, the people that live on the coast, and marine life would be the first to pay the price. What we do know about Trump is that he is pro-business and pro-deregulation. I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that. I think that's kind of a fact. This will definitely impact U.S. ocean climate policy. For example, we can expect the U.S. to withdraw from major international treaties and agreements and global climate discussions. We can expect the U.S. will stop contributing to any international funds that support climate adaptation, mitigation, resilience. We can expect policies to lean more towards what businesses want. The Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, these are two gigantic bills filled with tons and tons and tons of different things in each one that ended up providing massive amounts of new funding for climate-related stuff. So, all of the stuff that's happened with electric vehicle infrastructure being ramped up, research and development, this includes ocean related technology funding. We can assume that some of those unspent dollars could be repurposed towards something else. From my research, it seems unlikely that money that's already been issued will be rescinded, but it seems like the unspent money may be at risk. I know offshore wind is a bit controversial even within like the environmentalist community, but Trump has been very vocal that he's very against offshore wind, so that's just something to keep in mind. It's a tad worrying that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, aka NOAA, who is essential for weather forecasting, climate research, and sustainable fisheries management, they really do it all in terms of the ocean world, is at risk of being weakened, of their funding being cut. This is scary not only because of ocean science not progressing the way it needs to for us to find climate solutions, but it's also scary because NOAA helps us with natural disasters. The science and the weather data that NOAA produces has helped us in the past 50 years to learn when natural disasters are coming, to better understand weather patterns. Dismantling NOAA's role would set back ocean science and our ability to react to climate disasters for, I don't know, X amount of time. I don't really know, but it's not great well, that part's my opinion that it's not great. Maybe you have your own opinion. Of course, thankfully, thanks to the work of generations past, we do have some wildlife protection laws like the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which keep vulnerable species safe as of right now. But these acts are just words on paper at the end of the day. They require funding for enforcement, and they require somebody to be behind them, sort of saying that these are the laws that we agree with, and not sort of saying, hey, businesses, I'm going to turn a blind eye and cut the funding to the enforcement agency that would enforce things like the Marine Mammal Protection Act. We're talking about whales, coral reefs, sea turtles, all these things that we need protected because otherwise business activity poses a huge threat to their survival. Perhaps one of the most frightening things, in my opinion, has been the discussion around public lands. I don't know if Trump has mentioned this time around. I know that this was sort of a discussion during his last administration, so do your research on this before you go saying around the world many things. Coastal and marine areas need to be preserved for future generations, and they are, no matter who is the president, they're always at risk of being sold or leased for industrial use just because the nature of our government, it's not like there is like this stone and anything written on this stone can never be reversed or changed. So it's important to keep in mind that public lands maybe will not be as prioritized as they were in the past, and we really need those, not only for like the emotional and cultural things that they represent, but also they are huge carbon sequestration things. They are beautiful habitats, home to what biodiversity we have left on this planet vibes. You know what I mean? We are already at a tipping point as an Earth. Okay, that's not really a secret. In the last 50 years, we have lost 70% of wildlife populations. If we keep going down this road, and with Trump as the new president of the United States, it's estimated that by 2030, we will put 4 billion more tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Obviously, one can be hopeful that that will not be the case, but that is some bad news blues. It's bad news blues for the planet, but also for humans because of rising sea levels, stronger storms, and depleted fisheries. These are issues we are already seeing, and policies like the ones I just talked about in the last 10 minutes will only accelerate the damage. So what can we do? What are we going to do about it? Well, here's where we can take action. It's not always about big protests or national campaigns, although those are very, very important. I think they have a time and place, and maybe it's a bit in the future. I think it's also about protecting and nourishing your community and the environment where you live, the nature that's in your backyard and the nature that makes up your community. As I said in the beginning, I think a major way that we can make a difference is by staying engaged and staying informed. And that is kind of my new political resolution. I think I took a little bit of a break from being informed 100% on, it sounds crazy that I'm saying that, but what I mean is Being constantly informed of every single thing that happens, I don't think it's natural to the human brain. I don't think it's good for us. This is just my opinion now. This is not a fact. And it's something that I think took a big toll on my mental health. And there are certain times in life when it's not possible for us to monitor every single issue going on in our governments and abroad. It's simply not sustainable mentally. However, I do want to commit to staying up to date and staying informed with what I care most about, because that's where I'm the most motivated to act. And for me, that's ocean health, ocean science, coastal communities, and the environment at large. We can always get involved with local organizations that are working to protect marine habitats or to fight offshore drilling. There are incredible nonprofits, NGOs, businesses even, that are hiring lawyers to sue their local governments when they completely ignore public health regulations, or organizers that are working to educate people and build a movement around getting safe tap water in cities where toxic shit has been found in their water. Even if you don't live near the coast, there are so many organizations that are doing remote work. I'm sure there is some nature-related organization in your area. And if there isn't, girl, start one. On Instagram, I'm going to be sharing a list of environmental organizations and climate groups and individuals that I follow that help me to keep up with policy changes. I don't know the statistic, but I think a super large amount of Gen Z is getting their information all on Instagram. Which you can love it, you can hate it, but it's the reality. So we might as well follow people and organizations that are going to remind us of what's going on. Sharing their content, interacting with it, asking questions and things like that. Educating people and having a conversation, and I will die on this hill, is a powerful form of activism. So let's get talking. Let's get chatting about these things. I still believe in the green energy revolution and transition in this country. I do think it is a super positive pathway towards creating more jobs, towards obviously reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that we emit into the atmosphere. And I will say that I am gutted. And I've seen just endless amounts of content about this, and I feel like probably the least equipped person on the earth to talk about the grief and the sadness that people feel at the election results. I don't want to kind of sit here and repeat all of the things that other people have said about grief, about taking time to re-energize, about how neither candidate was good anyways, and either way we would have had to fight, and how people feel guilty and stupid for even assuming that there was a chance that Kamala would win. I think that really people smarter and more articulate than me have covered all those topics. So I'll just say this. If you are listening to this, the odds are that you are already a super passionate person who loves the environment and loves the ocean and is probably already doing things in your life to take care of it or to do what you can to make a better earth. Luckily and beautifully, I think that those are the kind of people that this podcast attracts. I will admit that I am still learning the most sustainable way that I can go about finding a way to incorporate taking action and being an active citizen in my country without getting burnt out and bogged down as an extremely empathetic and passionate person. When I was younger, listening to The Daily by the New York Times and other environmental podcasts and news sources was everything to me, and every time something would happen, it affected me really deeply. I spent a lot of my free time in college really trying to make a difference in what I thought was super important, and still think it's important, in things like single-use plastics elimination, getting rid of styrofoam takeout containers, putting a small tax on plastic bags. I still think those things are extremely important and amazing measures that can really make a difference. But what I found at the end of it all was extreme exhaustion and sort of a feeling that what I had done was great, but not good enough. And it broke my heart, and it still breaks my heart to see how money and business wins at the end of the day, no matter how amazing your proposal is, how strategic it is, how thoughtful and intentional it is. And I feel that this election is just sort of another reflection of that, and it's a reminder of that. I mean, that's just one of my interpretations out of maybe 100 that I've had over the past week. So I guess I'm just saying all of this to admit that I am not trying to push any activism sort of way of life onto anybody, because I understand that for a majority of people, the activism way of life is simply not possible or not sustainable. I think we are looking towards a new form of making a difference that is way more local and way more community based, way more related to the people you know and who's in your family and what you talk to them about and what you do for each other. Obviously, with those pieces of strategic organizing and participating in the bigger picture still there, what I'm saying is I don't want to say to everybody to go out there, go crazy and get involved and go insane and go wild, because I know from my personal experience that it's not always the most sustainable way to go about trying to bring change, because you might burn out, you might get discouraged. So I guess I just encourage you to explore a path that works for you, because I think that's what I'm doing. The truth is that the ocean and the environment needs more voices no matter what. So it doesn't really matter to me, at least. I don't know, maybe it matters to other people, but in my eyes, it doesn't matter whether you are the number one person out there giving speeches or you are talking about the environment amongst your friends at Thanksgiving, wherever. We cannot protect the environment if people are not talking about its significance, its importance to them, and we can't do it alone. Protecting our oceans and fighting harmful policies takes all of us. It means organizing, showing up, supporting each other, whether that's through national campaigns or local activism or just having honest conversations with people who might not understand what's at stake. It's a shame to me that environmental things have become so heavily politicized, because what this really is about is our planet, our biodiversity. What this really is about is our health and safety. It's about the next generations that are to come on this planet and the type of life that we want to hand off to them. It's about standing up for what's right. I am not like a political commentator, and I do want Ocean Stories to be an open dialogue community between people who genuinely are seeking solutions. And our world is changing all the time. I still feel hopeful. Like I said the night before the election, I think there is something revolutionary about believing in the good of humanity. And I don't know. It's a philosophical question that I like to think that I do believe in the good of humanity. Sometimes, sometimes I teeter-totter. But I do believe that we are good people. We're in this together, and together we can slowly but surely, maybe a little bit of one step forward, two steps back, 5 leaps forward. I don't know how it's going to happen, but we together can fight for our oceans, our planet, and for each other. Because these issues are super intersectional, right? It's not like if the oceans go down, we'll be fine. There are tons of people that will suffer. Okay, so these intersectional things, we're going to figure them out together day by day. Now, if you've made it this far into the episode, thank you so much, because I know that was a lot. And I wanted to end off the episode with a lot of the positive ocean news that some of my favorite organizations have been highlighting since the election, to talk about the fact that there are still people working and fighting every single day to create a better Earth. FutureSwell, an organization that I love, I'm a big fan, Carissa Cabrera, she is the CEO, and we had an interview with her if you want to check that out. They, I should say, post ocean positive news. I will definitely link them in my list of organizations and people that I love to follow, but I wanted to highlight some of the stories from the positive news that they shared. And some of this news really, really points to the importance of science. And wow, I just appreciate scientists. I feel like everything we know, we owe to scientists, but we don't value them as a society. Like, we don't pay them enough. And I don't know. It's just an interesting side plot, but in an eye-opening study about lab-grown corals, it was found that they resisted a bleaching event in the Caribbean, which is just interesting for the future of coral reef science. because coral reefs are incredibly important. Oh, I think it's also Coral Reef Appreciation Month or Awareness Month or something like that. So maybe we can talk about that next week. But scientists, this is not really positive, but this is just interesting. Scientists found microplastics in the breath of dolphins. You might have seen a headline about that in the past week. This is just another addition to the long list of remote places that plastic pollution has been found in, including the breast milk of mothers. It's been found in Mount Everest snow. It's been found up in the atmosphere, in human blood. Microplastics are everywhere, and I don't know what the heck we're gonna do about it. If you want to talk to me about this, let's chat about it, because this is one of those conversations we need to have. What are we going to do about this? Another organization that I really love shared some messages of positive ocean news. They do a good news post every single Tuesday. They said, and I quote, "Policy experts expect global momentum to continue, with alternative energy thriving. Brazil hosting COP30 in 2025, and China and the EU doubling down on climate action. America is all in. A coalition of 5,000 entities, US cities, states, corporations, universities, and tribal lands has also committed to climate action at the local level." You hear that, people? America is all in, okay? When the government doesn't do what you want, there are other ways. Life is not all the government. Another really cute piece of ocean news, which I just really like because I have a friend that lives in Long Island and I visited her, and now I'm just like this huge fan of Love Island and the bagels and the Italian American thing, and I don't know, I just love the whole energy. Long Island, New York voted to protect clean water and revitalize the coast. 72% of Suffolk County voters approved a ballot proposition which is going to generate billions of dollars to modernize wastewater infrastructure and protect Long Island's oceans and waterways from being polluted from nitrogen. And some other billions of dollars from that proposition are going to protect clean drinking water by conserving open space and wildlife habitats. I just love that because sometimes, I don't know if this is just in my head, you think of Long Island as more of a conservative area, if you know what I mean. But it just shows that clean water and coastal protection is something that we can all get behind. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, the Biden administration and the people that work in it are running around, I feel like, doing everything they can to get things done before Biden leaves office. And one of those things you might have seen a headline about is that the EPA is charging the first ever methane fee for emissions created by oil and gas companies. This is the first federal fee of this kind, and it only charges the companies if they emit dangerous methane above certain levels. Obviously, this is like a hopeful thing that is, we are hoping that this fee will encourage the industry to adopt some of the best practices that reduce the emissions of methane, like those filter things that they put on the top of the things, the scrubbers. Listen, I'm not a natural gas scientist, but there are measures, although they are expensive, that help reduce the amount of methane, which is the primary component of natural gas that goes into the atmosphere. The expected climate benefits from the emissions reduced by this fee could be as much as $2 billion. Hopefully, this fee sticks around, if you know what I mean. I think that is yet to be seen, so we can talk about that. I mean, the list of positive things really just goes on and on. It's just as long as the list of negative things that we can look forward to. There's a new marine protected area in the Azores Islands in Portugal. I've always felt uncomfortable pronouncing that, and maybe I should have looked it up, but you know what I'm talking about? Those beautiful, it's called the Hawaii of Europe sometimes. I've always wanted to go. It's so beautiful. It looks very jungly. They have created the biggest marine protected area in the North Atlantic. Puerto Rico has a new marine reserve, which will protect endangered species. They have been fighting for this marine reserve in Puerto Rico for 16 years, and it will protect 77 square miles of marine biodiversity. South Dakota rejected a law that would make the construction of oil pipelines easier. Washington State rejected a law that would repeal its cap and trade, which cap and trade is this whole energy thing. I could do an entire episode about it. If you want me to, let me know in the comments below. You know what I mean? And on top of all of that, I have seen some people talking about this. Orcas have returned to Penn Cove in Washington State. This is so interesting. I kind of want to do an entire episode about this. In 1970, 80 orcas were rounded up, captured, and attacked. 5 of them died, and 7 baby orcas were shipped to aquariums across the United States. It was awful. And if you want to learn more about this, listen to the orca episode that we did with the Orca Man. He tells this story. But after 50 years is, now, from 1970, orcas have been spotted in this cove again, a sign that the pod that was attacked may finally feel safe enough to return to the waters that literally hold. I'm like giggling, but it's not like because I think it's funny. It's like this like awkward thing I do when something is so horrible that holds insane amounts of trauma for their family. It destroyed their family. A horrific thing for orcas, and they're finally returning. So it's like, maybe we're doing a little something right in Penn Cove, Washington. So I hope that you feel a little bit of positive energy after that dark start. I hope that you know that there are good people, way, way, way more good people doing good things than there are bad people with malice in their hearts. There's this poem. You know what? I should read the poem because it's really short, that I saw a lot of people sharing in relation to, I guess, the election, but I think it's beautiful to think about anyways whenever you sort of feel down about the state of everything. And I think the poet is actually Canadian, so I don't think that she actually, is... Or wait, maybe she's from the UK? Hold on a second, let me clear this up. Okay, her name is Nikita Gill. She is an Irish Indian poet based in South England. And this is the poem. It's very short. Oh my goodness, I'm kind of nervous. I haven't read a poem since they forced me to memorize a Rupi Kaur poem when I was in like 9th or 10th grade in high school. Okay, here we go. Everything is on fire. But everyone I love is doing beautiful things and trying to make life worth living. And I know I don't have to believe in everything, but I believe in that. Well, isn't that just the darn loveliest poem you ever heard? Thanks for listening to Ocean Stories. I can't wait to keep telling ocean stories and watch as the current ongoing story of our oceans unravels before our very eyes. I'll see you next week with an episode I've been working on that is all about how to vote with our dollars and spend our money this holiday season in a way that creates the world we want to see. See you then! Thanks for listening to another episode of Ocean Stories. Don't forget to follow our social media channels for extra content behind the scenes and to connect with our guests. If you like this episode, please leave a review and let us know what you think. See you soon for more Ocean Stories.